So, when you start out, you are going to want to make sure that all of your material and your projects are in the same folder. And DaVinci works through databases. So what you can do is you can go down to the bottom, click Add Library, and I usually click Browse first, and then select the drive. So I've selected my drive, so that could be your edit share or your external hard drive or SSD, and then just click Select Folder and call it whatever your project name is. Don't just call it Project or Test. And then you can click Create. Give it a second and then it will load. It's a bad habit just to click on Untitled Project, because when you do that, especially in shared computers, that's probably going to be some random person's project. So always click New Project and then call it whatever your project name is, and then click Create. Now that DaVinci is up, you have the workspaces. So down here at the bottom, you can see that there's one for Media, one for Cut, Edit, Fusion, Color, Fairlight, and Deliver. So in the Media tab, it's separated out into different windows, and the main one that you're going to be looking at is the Media Pool, which is down here at the bottom. To get footage into your project, you need to take it from your hard drive, or as DaVinci calls it, your database, into the Media Pool. So I'm going to click the hard drive that we used to create our database in at the start, and then what you can see is I can actually see all of the footage that I have on that hard drive, and I can scroll through it here. I can just scrub through it and see what it is if I wanted a preview at all. So I'm going to select some of this footage and just select some random clips, and I can click and drag them into the media pool at the bottom. Now what's good about this is, again, I can scroll through the footage, see what I have. If I click it, I can then see information about the video, such as its frames per second and what type of video footage it is and what sort of camera it was shot on, if that's available to you. And then once we've got all of the footage or audio or pictures that we want in our project, we can then go onto the next tab, which is Cut. This tab again is split off into windows, and you've got your clips at the top left. You've got a timeline window, which is the window that will be showing what is on your timeline, which is at the bottom. On a random clip, you can see that again I can just scroll left and right and scrub through the clip, and I can click and drag that clip onto the timeline, and then I can use Control. If I hold Control down on my keyboard, I can scroll across and see that footage. The clip window is really good for being able to just sort of trim down individual clips and put together a really quick edit. And the way in which you can trim the clips is if I go to the edge of the clip, you can see that my mouse will be changing, and if I just grab it, I can move it left and right, and you even get a preview on the top window there. So I can cut it, and then I can again scroll through on the top part here. I can scroll across the clip and watch it. If I press play, which is spacebar, you can see it plays through the clip. You can drag multiple clips onto the clip window, but it's quite a cumbersome way in making your timeline for your film. So instead, I suggest going into the Edit tab. The Edit tab, you can see that everything that we did in the clip window is now in there, but we don't want any of that for now. So I'm just going to press delete on there, and we can start again from scratch. The edit window is, again, like the others, it's split into different areas. So you've got your timeline down here at the bottom, you've got your clip window top left, and your timeline window on your top right. If yours doesn't quite look like this, or it looks a bit off, one of the things, especially at our place, is to click Workspace and then Reset UI Layout, and I'm just going to click that, and everything kind of resets and formats itself properly. So you can see that our footage is here in the media bin, which we set up in the media tab. It's all here in the media bin, ready for us to click and drag into our timeline. So I can click these clips and they appear in the clip window, but if I double click, it stays in there. So what we can do is we can scrub along our footage to find areas that we want to put into our film. So just say I want the footage to start here. What I can do is I can press I for in, go to the end of where I want it to end, and press O for out. I and O are quite universal across editing softwares. For in and out, I want it to start here and end here. And then what I can do is I can click and drag that down into our timeline. There are different ways that you can put your footage onto your timeline, and it becomes a preference. To show you the other ways, we're going to look at these little tabs here. These are the tools: insert, overwrite, and replace. So I'm going to find another clip here. So I'm going to take part of this clip and I'm going to press I for in and O for out. Now this is how you can move across your timeline, by dragging that cursor. You'll see that if I drag in the timeline itself, it's not letting me move that red cursor. Whereas if I click on the top up here, that's where I can move it. So I'm going to move it around about into the middle of that clip. And if I press insert, watch what happens. It inserts it into that clip. So it's now sandwiched between the clip that we put there originally. So I'm going to press play, and you can see that it's in between it. Okay, I'm going to press Ctrl Z to go back to where we were, and to show you, if I click overwrite, you will see that it completely overwrites it. And if I move this clip up into a different track, you'll see that everything that was here has now gone. So you do have to be kind of careful on your timeline, because if I move this back and back and back and back, you'll see that it's actually deleting everything that was there. So do be careful. And the way that the timeline works as well is that it's a top-down view. If I play the clip, you'll see that it actually just cuts into and cuts over the clip that was underneath it. So you always see what's on the top video tracks. There are various ways to trim your clips and cut your clips. And what I can do is I can grab the edge of, like in the clip window, I can grab the edge and slide it across, and it trims it. It's like tape, it trims it. I can also extend it as well if I so wish, and you can see that you're getting a preview of it in your timeline window, so you can be really accurate with where you want it to end. You can press B for blade, or use the button up the top here. So I'm going to click that, and then I can start cutting into this video. And if I press A to go back to selection, A, I can then click this and press delete to sort of cut and chop areas out of your video. I do want to show you though, there is a difference between delete and backspace to get rid of areas. So if I click this clip here that we've created by splitting up the original video, and I press delete, you'll see that everything shifts. Let's just do that again. You'll see that everything shifts in place. So I'm going to press that and press delete, and everything shifts. If I press backspace instead, it leaves everything where it was. It's far less destructive than pressing delete, because you might move some stuff that you didn't want to be moved if it was timed the way that you wanted it to be. So I tend to get into the habit of pressing backspace to do that. There are other handy little features as well in DaVinci when you're moving clips around, is you can add these really easy dissolves and transitions just by clicking the top corner of the clip and moving them across. And you see that it fades in, and you can add as much of a fade as you want. One feature as well, which is quite nice to have, is this snapping tool. You'll see that I can move, if I go to the edge of a clip, I can move my mouse around just a little bit, and it will keep that clip right up snug to the edge of the one that's before it. If I don't want that to happen, I can press this tool here, snapping, or N on the keyboard, and if I click that, I can then move this clip freely around without it snapping to either the cursor there or any of these clips below it. Do be careful with that though, because you can end up just leaving like single black frames, which can be really jarring on the audience. Now that we've got quite a few things in our timeline, I just want to show you some quick navigation tips. If I hold Alt and scroll, it zooms into the timeline where this red cursor is. So if I move it there and I press hold Alt and scroll forward, we can zoom into the timeline. If I hold Control and scroll, it moves left and right. So Alt is in and out, Control is left and right. Let's say that I was working on a clip, working on timeline, and I had something up here that I wanted to keep, but I actually wanted to keep working on the clip underneath. But I can't see what's happening. What I can do is I can actually press this button here, which is disable video track, and it removes it from view. It keeps it in the timeline, but it removes it from what you can and can't see. Make sure that if you use this feature to disable the video track, that you enable it back, because when you go to render your video, it won't be there, and what you see is what will get rendered. Now, with DaVinci, a lot of its tools are kind of like hidden in these tabs up the top here. So I'm just going to quickly show you effects. This is where you'll have your transitions, your audio transitions, titles generators, and any other sort of plugins that you might have available to you. The first one that I'm going to show you is titles, and the main one that you'll use here is text. And if I click and drag that onto a new video clip and move our timeline over, you can see that it's got this nice basic text. I can't actually change anything on here, so it just looks like that. But what I can do is go to another tab which is at the top here called Inspector. If I click that, now we can change our text and the features of our text, such as the font and the color. Obviously don't do this, it looks awful, but we can also change our size, the tracking of it, and all of these other things. Like a standard word processor, we can start changing things within our text. And what's nice about it as well is this text acts almost like a video clip, so we can add a dissolve in at the start and just have it dissolve in, trim it down and dissolve out, just like any other standard video. The other thing which I'll show you is the transitions. And these are worth playing around with, just seeing what's available to you. If you want the star wipe from Star Wars, go ahead, it's in there. But the main one that you will end up using is the cross dissolve. So I'm just going to move that across to the edge of our clip, or you can move it between two clips, such as there, and it will transition between them. Obviously it won't because they're the same clip, but if we move it here, you'll see that it will transition much like the cross dissolve does on our text. Other great features in that Inspector tab at the top right, so we can make sure that we're inside of it, is that this is where we can change how zoomed in we are on images, the position of the images left and right or up and down, even rotation, and the pitch, which is like on a pivot, as well as the yaw. You can even flip images around. You've got cropping, so left and right, up and down. One thing which is pretty cool, quite like Photoshop, you have composite mode. So how do you want your clip to be overlaid? Quite popular ones are kind of screen and soft light and things like that. Great for music videos and things. I'm going to put that back to normal. You can even change the speed of your clip if you want it slowed down or sped up. And it's got a built-in stabilizer, which is a really good one, and it's always worth just sort of playing around again and sort of seeing what each thing does by itself. If you ever change something and you don't like the feel of it, you can just press these reset buttons, which are on the left hand side. Once you're happy with your video and you've checked over everything hundreds of times, as the case might be, you can go down to here, which is deliver, and on the deliver tab, this is where you will make your video into a playable file that you can send out. For yourself, especially if you're new to this, don't worry too much about formats and things, and they seem a lot more complicated than they are. For you, just click up here, H.264 master. If you click there, all of the settings will basically be done for you. What I'm going to do is, as I always do, I click location first, and I'm just going to put this into the same hard drive under a folder called exports that I've been working in for this whole project, and I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to call it whatever my project name is, not final test or anything like that. Call it the name of your film. Things to look out for, just make sure that you've got export video ticked, and under here you've got export audio, and down here you can actually scroll through your timeline. Okay, you can use in and out on here. So I'm going to go to the end of my clip and press O for out, just to make sure that only what I want is going to be rendered. Once I'm happy with that, I can click add to render queue and it will appear in your render queue. The render queue is really useful if you're going to be exporting multiple sections of your timeline, so you don't have to render one thing, wait for it to be done, and then come back and choose the next thing and then repeat the process. You can actually just select areas of your timeline, add it to the render queue, and then just click render. What we're going to do is, because we're rendering our whole timeline, we've got all of that sorted, we're happy with that. I can make sure that everything's okay, always double check, and make sure you know where you've saved your project, and then I'm going to click render all, and then it will work through that and render the project for us.